was one day that I had passed through a lock system, and there was a 9 mile stretch, and I saw more alligators in that stretch than I did. I think I saw 25% of the alligators in total over the 460 miles just in that day. 25%. It was like came out to, I think it was like 24 or 26 alligators that day. Well, the alligators were it was like one every half an hour, and sometimes two at a time, and they'd be, you're paddling a river, so you're hugging the shorelines, and that's where their habitat is. They're not out in the middle of the river unless they're crossing, and so you have to quite literally pass an apex predator several times a day. Yeah, and that day I had passed 24. And so there was one that was coming down, and it wasn't the biggest, it wasn't huge. That was the thing, is that the 9-10 footers, they're the most agile, because it's right before they get big and fat and lazy, and they'll get, they're really agile and they can move quick, and they're big enough to really hurt you. But they're curious animals. There's nothing really to fear about alligators if you give them respect, because they don't just go and hunt you down. That was the thing, is that this was a strange anomaly, and I have to mention this because there is a lot of stigma and fear about alligators, and out of all of them that I passed, they are more afraid of humans than we are afraid of them. But there was this one particular stretch, and the reason why they had acted this way was because in this 9-mile stretch, it was the only part of the Tombigbee that did not allow hunting of alligators. So they had no reason to ever fear humans in that 9-mile stretch. So they were more curious than usual. And as he was coming down the river and I was paddling up the river, I could see the ripples behind his head, and he's swimming towards me, and I'm going up towards him, and I'm like, well, he's not moving. So I yell at him like, hey! Hey! And he's not moving. He's actually going a little bit faster. And I'm like, oh my God. So I'm like, all right, well, I veer off. I try to go around him, and he turns his head and he starts following me out into the river, and I'm like, oh man. So, now you're out in the currents and you're a little bit, going a little bit slower. So now I got to cross the river to get around him. So I cross over to the other side of the river, and I turn around behind me, and man, he's still following me. He's probably 20 feet behind me now, and he's just stalking me. And I'm like, oh man, my heart starts beating, and I'm paddling. I finally get into the lee of the current, and I start paddling upriver. I'm gaining more momentum. I turn around, he's still following me. I turn to my right, and there's another 10-foot alligator that locks eyes on me, and he starts coming up out of curiosity. So now I've got two 10-foot alligators stalking me. Those sons of guns stalked me for a half a mile. I have never paddled so hard in my life. I was like, my heart was beating, and they swim fast too. They were so curious. And I got around this bend in the river where I made a sharp turn. And as soon as I did, when I had broken eye contact with them, I immediately went and crossed the river, never saw them again. That was terrifying. Yeah, there was one time that I had checked my GPS to see how far I had until the next campsite, and that was a challenge in itself. The scarcity of campsites on the Tombigbee. A lot of it was just, you get in the canoe and you can't get out of the canoe for 14 hours. Like, it was hard. And there was one time I was pulled over on the side in the mud bank, and you can't step out in the mud bank, you'll sink up to your waist. So I was checking my GPS, and I was sitting there for probably 5 minutes, and I look up, and maybe 20 feet in front of me is this huge alligator. It's enormous. Like, it looked like the eyeballs on his head were like two mountains. It's just sitting up there. It's big lizard, and he was prowling up on me, in front of me, and I was like, I nearly jumped out of my skin. My skin goes cold. I was like, holy crap! Yeah, because he was sneaking up on me, and he was 20 feet up. So the first thing that I did was I go, like a Native American or something. I'm like, I was just so much fear in my body that I didn't know what to do. And that thing just made this big tail splash and runs off. He was out of there. He wanted nothing to do with me. But the biggest deterrent for alligators that I had found, because alligators, they're cold-blooded, so they're immune to antiperspirants because they're reptiles. So you can't use bear spray, you can't use pepper spray. Their hide is so thick you can't get a knife through them, so even carrying a knife will do very little unless you stab them in the eye. And chances are is you're only going to have one arm free, because they're probably going to grab an arm if that were to so happen, which it probably wouldn't. But under the rare case scenario, so when you're in there in their habitats and they're extremely curious of you, and they've never seen a canoeist before, because who's insane enough to paddle upstream in some of the most densely alligator populated swampland in North America, the biggest deterrent was I turned on this thick southern accent whenever I saw them. And I would look at them and I'd say, I'm a-coming for ya. I'm a-coming! And they would just blow up in the water, make this big splash, and just charge out into the middle of the river. They wanted nothing to do with that. So, if you ever get in a situation with an alligator, that's all you got to do. I'm a-coming for ya.